My name is Angela Smith. The person who inspired me was my grandmother, named Sally Julia Hall. She was in the South. I grew up in the South, as she did as well, in Georgia. And it was a time of segregation. A lot of people don't remember segregation, but I do. I was young, but I remember segregation. And I can tell you a story of being little, and one day my grandmother took me to the grocery store. And I see the way people walk around today, and myself, I'm guilty, with the sagging pants and just unkept. Down in the South, back in the late 50s with my grandmother, she put on her clean, crisp cotton dress, and we didn't have money, but she was clean and ironed and pressed, and her shoes were white and unsmudged, and or it was like you were going to church with her handbag and proper with the hair done, because that was a time. And even now, the perception that people have, and even just having pride for herself, my grandmother wouldn't just go out looking any kind of way. And I remember her taking me to town, and she would tell me that I could have one thing, just one thing. So I knew not to beg and to throw fits for one thing. That was before African American children, we were black back then, discovered Child Protective Services. I knew I'd get my behind whipped when we got back home. But on this particular day, we went to the grocery store, and I wanted ice cream. I wanted ice cream. And there was a ice cream shop across the street from the grocery store. And we walked in the front door. And the shop was still, and it was quiet, and the lights were low, and there was a white gentleman behind the counter. He had been sweeping the floor. And when we walked in, just the two of us, he stopped and he looked at us. And as a child, I didn't know what was going on. I don't even know if I had started school yet then. But my grandmother and I, we walked up to the counter, and she asked for a vanilla ice cream cone for me. And he told us that she would have to come around to the back. And we went back out the front and had to come around to the side. And we stood out there in the sun, in the hot sun. And I can remember it like it was yesterday, even though I can't tell you my age, because this is Hollywood. But it was long ago, but I remember it. I remember it so clearly. Us standing there, and I was tugging on her skirt, tugging on her dress, asking her why we, why do we have to stand over here? Why do we? And I just remember her telling me to hush, just hush, be quiet, be quiet. And he came, and he handed the ice cream cone to her out the door, and she gave it to me. And as a child then, what I wanted was my ice cream. And having faith, I knew if my grandmother said she would do something for me, if she would get something for me, she would do it. And she got that ice cream for me. And it wasn't until years later that I came to understand just how humiliating that must have been for her, to have to come out of a store and walk around to the back, to the side, where there was dirt. And I remember the stairs there, and him just handing the ice cream to her, barely opening the door. But she did that because she loved me. She did that because she promised it to me. She did that for me because I was a grandchild. And she did that because she was not going to let the color of anyone's skin or the manner in which they treated her keep her from doing what she promised to do for her grandbaby. So when it comes down to who I'm inspired by, I have to think first of her, not that they're, and she was a woman of such strength. And we take so much for granted now. We take so much for granted, being able to walk into a store and to do whatever we want. And even I have a son, and I have to hearken back to him and just let him know, hey, you know, you are complaining about your job, you're complaining about this, and I don't want anybody to get the impression that things cannot be better, but I remember when things were worse. And I'm probably one of the last part of that generation that remembers when things were worse. And I remember that, and it keeps me grounded. I've been in LA for 20 years, and I remember.